They can record all they want.
No, you need to go record for you.
They can record all they want. They getting out today.
I called my mama's phone. Called my brother. And nobody answered. And then I called my cousin, and she told me, something had happened to my mom and my brother. And that's when I found out that they were gone.
This is Natasha Sutton, a 44-year-old mother at her 21-year-old son who would both be killed by her landlord during an eviction. It was in the mid-hours of September 16, 2025 at around 2 p.m. when the frantic police rushed to the 900 block of Washington Street, responding to reports of gunfire and a scene of utter chaos. When they arrived, the horror unfolded before them. 3 victims, 2 of them dead from gunshot wounds, and 1 left clinging to life, gravely injured. The man responsible? A 39-year-old landlord, once seen as a pillar of the community who had worked tirelessly to give back, to lift up the very people around him. But what could have turned this man with so much promise and so many good deeds behind him into someone capable of committing such an unspeakable act? What happened that day? What was the final spark that led to a violent eruption of rage and betrayal? Let's break down the chilling details and try to understand the events leading up to that fateful day. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. This is the life and death of Natasha Sutton and her son. Wilson, North Carolina may be a small town, but it carries the weight of struggles just like any big city. It's a place where everyone knows each other, and while it may be beautiful and full of resilience, the violence that lurks beneath the surface leaves its scars on everyone. It's the kind of town where, in an ideal world, the sense of community would ensure that the worst could never happen. But as the tragic event of September 16th proved, even the tightest communities can fall apart. 44-year-old Natasha Latrice Sutton and her 21-year-old son, Avante Pender, were simply trying to live their lives in Wilson, North Carolina, a small city known for its tobacco history and close-knit community. Little did they know their lives would end far sooner than expected. Natasha, a devoted mother, had been struggling to make ends meet. The relationship between her and her landlord, 39-year-old Dante Maurice Chestnut, had deteriorated over unpaid rent. While details remain scarce about the exact nature of their interaction, the dispute over rent would prove deadly. Natasha, as well as her family, were not expecting such an outcome from a man who had long been seen as a pillar of the community. Dante was known for his work in the community. He founded Our Wilson, a nonprofit aimed at helping local youth find direction and purpose. His organization provided mentorship, taught life skills, and even offered financial literacy programs. Dante helped teach kids about responsibility, how to change oil, and how to box, all while also engaging with them in meaningful physical activities. From the outside, it seemed like he was creating a positive influence for the younger generation. Dante was deeply involved in his work and was a role model to many. His community outreach even included youth programs and a semi-professional football team that extended to young adults.
Second place, Level Up Academy. First place, Dante Chestnut, Our Wilson, good talk. I hear
It's going down, man. Got my champ with me. We about to rock with the kids. We about to get them right.
it's streets. Yeah, you understand my...
With the program, my brother, he ended up getting shot and killed. It was a program that I always wanted to do, but it made me push forward with that after, his death. And, it hurt me. So I wanted to make a difference in the community.
But as we would learn, things weren't as picture perfect as they seemed. Dante's relationship with the community was complicated. Though he had garnered a reputation for helping those in need, Dante's personal life was marked by its own struggles. Dante grew up in a small town surrounded by a questionable lifestyle. He faced a tough childhood, largely raising himself, and became a symbol of resilience in his community. Determined to make a difference, Dante decided to teach young kids how to navigate life and avoid falling into trouble. But it wasn't going to be that easy. In 2011, he had a run-in with the law after an altercation involving a police officer. Although he was found not guilty, this encounter led him to build a stronger resolve to fight for his community's rights. In 2023, Dante also ran for a seat on the Wilson City Council, but he ultimately lost the race. His actions, whether in court or in his community, were always marked by the same impulse, to stand up for what he believed was right, especially when it came to protecting his loved ones. However, in September 2025, his personal life took a drastic turn. A rent dispute with a family led to Dante showing up at Natasha Sutton's home, and a conversation about unpaid rent would escalate into a tragic, violent encounter. On that fateful day, Dante arrived at Natasha's home demanding rent payment that had been overdue for months. What was supposed to be a routine eviction encounter turned deadly. As tensions rose, Dante pulled out a gun and opened fire, shooting Natasha and Avante. A third family member, Tiffany Fogg, was also injured during the incident. What made the crime even chilling was the video Dante filmed during the attack, which he later deleted. In the video, he can be heard telling the victims they had to leave the house that day. In the clip, Natasha seemed to be on a call with the police, probably because she and Dante had been arguing. The dispatcher could be heard telling both parties to wait until the police arrived. But nothing could have prepared the police for what they would encounter when they got there. As the altercation spiraled out of control, Dante shot Natasha and Avante in cold blood, leaving their family devastated and their community in disbelief. Neighbors had heard rapid gunfire, followed by the sounds of
They gotta go today. What?
Sir, you cannot.
They can record all they want.
No, you need to go.
They can record all they want. They getting out today.
Right, you hear that, right? We're gonna record. We put a link with them. No, sir. Yeah, you call me. Thank you. You're welcome.
We gotta start packing stuff up today, man.
At around 2 p.m., the police quickly responded to the emergency call reporting gunfire and a chaotic scene at the 900 block of Washington Street. Upon arrival, officers found the victims at the scene, 2 dead, 1 seriously injured. How could a simple eviction have turned into a bloody massacre? The immediate question on everyone's mind was, why did Dante, a man known for his community service, turn to violence? Witnesses reported that Dante had arrived at the residence of Natasha and her family, seemingly to address the rent that had been overdue for several months. But what started as a confrontation over money quickly spiraled out of control. Dante, once known for his efforts to mentor and uplift young people, had taken matters into his own hands. According to sources, Dante not only shot Natasha and Avante, but also pistol-whipped another family member before shooting another victim, Tiffany Fogg. Upon realizing what had happened, the police immediately arrested 39-year-old Dante Maurice Chestnut on the spot. His arrest shocked the entire community, as they had known him for his contributions and his efforts to prevent gun violence, making his crime seem all the more unthinkable. As the investigation unfolded, what they found later was more unsettling. Remember the house where the whole shooting had taken place? It was revealed that the house had multiple issues. It was in inferior condition, with several boarded-up windows and a low market value of just $48,000. Despite the financial hardships and living conditions that led to the eviction threat, there was no justification for the extreme violence that followed. The tragedy was a stark example of how an unresolved financial dispute can spiral into something deadly when it is not handled properly. Dante was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Natasha and Avante, as well as 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for the shooting of Tiffany Fogg. He was denied bond and held in the Edgecombe County Jail with no bond, where he awaits further legal proceedings. But his actions on that day would also lead to other charges. Dante's sister, Tiffany Monique Chestnut, was accused of helping him flee the scene by providing him with a part of a broken handgun as he fled. She was charged with felony accessory after the fact and stealing criminal evidence. She was granted a $30,000 bond. This act would lead to further legal complications for the family. The arrest of Dante was shocking and difficult for the community to grasp. Many in Wilson knew Dante as a community advocate and a former candidate for city council. He had spent years working to uplift young people through his nonprofit organization, Our Wilson, and had been actively involved in teaching kids life skills. His program had become a staple in the community, and his sudden fall from grace raised a multitude of questions. What could have driven him to commit such a heinous act, especially after having been so involved in helping others? Was it a momentary lapse in judgment, or was this a more calculated act spurred by personal and financial struggles? The motivations behind Dante's actions remain complex and multifaceted, and while the details of his life are now under intense scrutiny, it is clear that his once promising future has now been overshadowed by his violent actions. When the news of Dante Maurice Chestnut's arrest spread, many in the community struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the person who had just killed 2 people.
A man accused of double murder now faces a new charge. Wilson police added a second charge for attempted murder for Dante Chestnut, as he accused of shooting 4 people yesterday.
He comes to this community all the time to give back to his community, clean up the yards, help the old people out. Just devastating that something like this would even be brought to our attention. It's just sad. Like, I'm about to just break down in tears to see a black man, any type of man, human being, that is sitting here and people tricking him off the streets as much as he give back to his community.
One of the most difficult aspects of this case was the betrayal felt by those who had looked up to Dante as a role model. Takia Farmer, a local mother, was among those who had trusted Dante's intentions and had seen the positive impact of his nonprofit work on her children. She, like many others, was devastated by the violence that erupted on Washington Street. Takia's rushed to the scene of the shooting, in disbelief that the same person who had worked so hard for the betterment of the community could be the one responsible for taking 2 lives. Her grief was compounded by the fact that the victims were not strangers. Natasha Sutton and her son Avante were part of the community that Dante had once called his own. Takia's sorrow was shared by others in the town, as many could not understand how Dante, a man who had been dedicated to reducing violence in Wilson, had turned so violently against his fellow community members.
Your heart is ripped out of your chest.
I feel like somebody just stabbed me in my heart.
I called my mama's phone. Called my brother. And nobody answered. And then I called my cousin, and she told me, something had happened to my mom and my brother. And that's when I found out that they were gone.
The funeral services for Natasha Sutton and her son Avante were held shortly after the tragic incident. The loss left a gaping hole in the hearts of their family and friends who struggled to make sense of the senseless violence. Natasha's sister, Tiffany Fogg, who was also a victim of the shooting, was left to cope with the traumatic experience of not only losing their loved ones, but surviving an attack that left her injured. The funeral was a somber occasion, with many of the victims' family members and friends attending to honor their memory. The entire community seemed to come together, not just to mourn, but to try and comprehend how the tragedy could have occurred. There was an underlying sadness, knowing that such an important part of their town had been taken from them, not by some distant criminal, but by a man who had once been a beacon of hope in Wilson. During the service, people were left grappling with the paradox of Dante's actions. He had once been viewed as someone who stood for something better, someone who was going to be a political force in Wilson, someone who could bring about change. And yet, in a few minutes of rage, he tore apart the lives of those he once served. For many, this was not just the loss of a mother and son, but the loss of the promise of what Dante could have been for the community. This was a loss of hope. In the wake of the funeral, the community rallied around the victims' families, offering comfort and support. There were discussions about how to address the root causes of such violence and how to ensure that those in positions of power, like Dante, are held accountable for their actions. The tragedy highlighted the ongoing struggles with violence, poverty, and mental health in the area, and it reinforced the need for stronger community support systems to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. As the dust begins to settle in Wilson, the community must now confront the many questions that surround this tragic event. How did someone who worked so hard to mentor children, promote peace, and reduce violence snap in such a violent manner? Was it the stress of his own personal struggles that led him to cross a line from community leader to murderer? Dante's personal life was filled with turmoil, his own battles with the law, ongoing financial difficulties, and the pressure of trying to maintain a positive public image, all of which may have played a role in his actions. However, no amount of personal stress can excuse the loss of life that occurred that day. For those who knew Dante, the pain was especially acute. They had trusted him, admired him, and believed in his mission. Now they are left to pick up the pieces, trying to make sense of a man they once thought of as a hero, only to discover that he is responsible for one of the town's most horrific tragedies. For the rest of us, this case serves as a grim reminder that no one is immune to the pressures and struggles of life. Sometimes those who seem the strongest can be the most vulnerable, and mental health issues, financial stress, and personal trauma can push someone to the breaking point. It's important to never assume that someone is doing okay just because they appear to be successful or helping others. People, no matter how strong they seem, need support, compassion, and a safe place to talk about their problems before they make irreversible decisions. As for Dante, it's still uncertain what exactly pushed him to commit such an unthinkable crime, but as the legal process unfolds, we must continue to seek justice for the victims, Natasha Sutton and Avonhe Pender. Their families deserve answers, and Dante's story serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between being a community hero and a tragic figure. For the people of Wilson and other communities, this story serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of community involvement and support. Even those who seem the strongest among us can be vulnerable. It's crucial for all of us to reach out, offer support, and create spaces for open dialogue. Only by fostering these connections can we ensure that a tragedy like this is less likely to happen again. In the face of such devastation, let us also be reminded of the need for compassion, understanding, and action. Dante's story should be a wake-up call to all of us. If we see someone struggling, we must step up and offer help before they spiral into a dark place where violence becomes an option. We must keep our communities safe and offer the support people need to thrive, not just survive. In conclusion, Dante Mari's Chestnut story is one of betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. The community he worked so hard to build has now been left to pick up the pieces. As the legal process moves forward, we can only hope that the victims' families receive the justice they deserve and that the community can heal from the pain caused by this senseless act of violence. For the people of Wilson, continue to come together and support one another as you heal from the pain of this unimaginable loss. And for the rest of us, let us remember that each day brings an opportunity to offer kindness, compassion, and help where it is needed most. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.